Good afternoon, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. This is Balitang Kasaysayan, committed to delivering truthful, compassionate, and unbiased historical story.
For our opening story, we take a look at the Asian barangay system before the arrival of the Spain. The way of ancestors governed themselves differ greatly from how our government works today. During the pre-colonial era, communities were ruled by a datu or raja who served as the highest authority in the village. Society was divided into social classes, the Maharlika or nobility, the Timawa or the pre-governors, and the Alipin, which were either namamahay or samninili, depending on their living condition and rights. Unlike our current system, where laws undergo long legislative processes in Congress and required executive approval, law back then were created directly by the Datu with the guidance of the Council of Earth Elders. Now let's tackle the Spanish era, transition. The Spanish era began with the arrival of Ferdinand Magellan in 1521. From 1565 to 1821, the Philippines became a crown colony ruled through Mexico. Under the oversight of the Council of Indies, Spain's agency for managing overseas territories. The system consisted of the Viceroy of Mexico as the top authority, the Governor General as the chief executive, and the Royal Audiencia acting as the highest court. Throughout Spanish rule, the Patronato used church and state power. This strengthened the influence of the friars, leading to the era widely referred to as Prelocary. To walk us through how Philippines government changed during the Philippines Revolution, we have reporter Herm Menes.
From this point, the Katipunan emerged, a revolutionary group formed by ordinary citizens determined to fight Spain. Under Andres Bonifacio, the organization openly declared separation from Spanish rule. After Rizal's execution, the movement grew even stronger, with more Filipinos joining the call for revolution. To strengthen unity, Bonifacio traveled to Cavite to settle disputes between the Magdiwang and Magdalo factions. This led to the Tejeros Convention, which dissolved the Katipunan and established a new revolutionary group government headed by General Emilio Aguinaldo.
To continue our coverage, we now go live to Hermogenes, reporting from the National Museum of the Philippines Art. Hermogenes?
Yes, thank you. After the events at Tejeros, which eventually led to the death of Supremo Bonifacio, the revolutionary forces relocated to Bulacan, forming what became known as Biak na Bato Republic. During this period, the revolutionaries and the Spanish government signed the Pact of Biak na Bato, which required Aguinaldo's exile to Hong Kong in exchange for an initial payment of 400,000 pesos.
While in Hong Kong, did Aguinaldo abandon his fight for independence?
Not at all. Aguinaldo continued seeking support and forged a fragile alliance with the United States. After the American Asiatic Fleet destroyed the Spanish Navy in the Battle of Manila Bay, Aguinaldo returned to the Philippines.
Upon his return, did the revolutionary forces finally succeed in defending Spain?
In several ways, yes. Upon Aguinaldo's return, Filipino forces gained significant victories across Luzon and Visayas. On June 12, 1898, Aguinaldo proclaimed the independence of the Philippines in Kawit, Cavite, where the national flag was publicly displayed.
According to Apolinario Mabini, the independence was premature due to the unstable alliance with the United States. Thank you for the report, Hermogenes.
For more on the Philippines Republic, the Philippine-American War, and the American occupation, we turn to reporter Malagamba, reporting live on Barasoan Church in Malolos, Malagamba.
Thank you, Garcia. It was held in Barswell Church where the Malolos Congress convened on September 15, 1898. On November 29, the Congress approved the Malolos Constitution draft by Philip Calderon and ratified by Emilio Aguinaldo on January 21, 1899. In that same year, U.S. Governor Otis published President Macklin proclamation asserting American ownership of the Philippines under the Treaty of Paris, wherein Spain sold the archipelago to the U.S. for $20 million. Aguinaldo's government protest officially established the Malolos Republic to assert Philippine sovereignty. However, failed negotiate and rising tensions eventually triggered the Philippine-American War, beginning with a clash the San Juan Bridge. The Republic suffered multiple defeats as American reinforcement arrived. Aguinaldo was later captured in Isabela, marking the fall of the First Republic. Back to you, Garcia.
Thank you, Malagamba. A tragic reminder how hard our ancestors fought, only to face another foreign power. To better understand the American occupation and the rise of the Commonwealth, let us watch a short documentary prepared by reporter Tukay. Tukay?
When Aguinaldo was captured, the U.S. civil government officially began on July 4, 1901, with William Howard Taft as civil governor, yet military rule continued in various regions due to ongoing resistance. The first major step towards civil rule was the Philippine Organic Act of 1902, which created the Philippine Assembly, the first all-Filipino legislative body. Sir James Mena served as its speaker, while Manuel L. Quezon acted as majority leader. Under Governor Francis Gordon Harrison, the government underwent Philippinization, with Filipinos occupying nearly all civil positions. In 1916, the Jones Law was passed, giving the Philippines a clearer path to eventual independence. Subsequent independence missions, such as the Oxros Mission, fought for transition laws until Manuel L. Quezon secured the tidings, laying the foundation for a self-governing Commonwealth. In 1935, a constitutional convention dropped the first true Filipino constitution, leading to the election of Quezon as president and Tasmania as vice president. The Commonwealth prioritized national defense, expanded civil rights, granted women suffrage, and adopted Filipino based on Tagalog as the national language. But the progress of the Commonwealth was interrupted by the darkest era in Philippine history. Pasok, guys!
For our final report, we go live to Maanyag, who is currently in Bataan, the site of the tragic death march. Maanyag?
Thank you, Garcia. I am here in Bataan, where thousands of Filipinos and Americans suffered during in famous Bataan Death March after months of resistance. Nearly 70,000 soldiers were forced to from Maribeles to San Fernando, Pampanga, many dying along the way. Tell us more. I am joined by Maganda, a historical analyst and granddaughter of Death March survivor.
Good day, Manya.
Go. Good day. Could explain what happened following the fall Bataan and the Battle of Corregidor?
It was a devastating period. Families were shattered and the entire country was gripped by fear and grief. Still, Filipinos persevered despite immense suffering.
How did we eventually reclaim our freedom?
Go. In 1943, Prime Minister Heidi Pincomo promised independence to Filipinos, leading to drafting of a constitution by preparatory commission and the formation of the Japanese-sponsored government. However, freedom came only after the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in world history, which dealt a decisive blow to Japanese forces on July 5, 1945. General MacArthur announced the liberation of the Philippines.
Thank you, Maganda, for sharing this important historical insight. Back to you, Garcia.
Thank you, Maanyag and Maganda, for that comprehensive report. And that concludes today's broadcast. This is Garcia, together with Nicolas for Balitang Kasaysayan. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful